before I carry on, I just want to say how nervous and anxious I am. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm full of fear. I'm going back a long time, and it's going to bring up a lot of stuff, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's hard looking back. Do you know what I mean? Well, I grew up with my mum. From when I can remember, my mum was a single parent, and
Dad was never around.
my mum and dad were together, but I can't remember them being together.
Okay.
From where I can look back, my memories start from my mum getting beaten. Do you know what I mean? That's when my memory is from. Really, that's when I can remember growing up. I can remember being at primary school and being a handful. Do you know what I mean? And it's not till now, when I've got older, I can look back and understand or realise why I was being a handful at primary school and at home. And I was expelled from primary school in year 5. And I used to get up to some real mischief stuff at home. Do you know what I mean?
You think that was like a coping mechanism?
Yeah, if I look back now, I could probably think I was probably acting out in them behaviours because of probably my upbringing. Maybe attention, or maybe to make myself feel better or heard or seen. Yeah, that was tough. And I was a little boy. There was loads of anger at home. Aggression, anger, violence. I see that from an early age. I mean,
how did that make you feel like at the time? Was it normalized, do you think?
I didn't know any difference, I don't suppose. Do you know what I mean? I was brought up in that life and that environment, and I didn't know any different. I remember my mum getting beaten bad, so bad, that I actually pretended and that I was choking on some food, and I hid under the dining room table because my mum was beaten, and I didn't know how to get out of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I pretended I was choking on some food and I was hiding under the dining room table, and I was rushed to hospital. That's how much I was acting.
Yeah.
It was tough, man. It was real tough.
And so when did the violence stop? Did your dad just leave one day, or?
See, the violence didn't stop for a long time. The violence, my mum and dad had split up. So then my mum had seen someone else, which was my sister's dad, or still is my sister's dad, and that's when I can remember the violence from another relationship, not my dad.
Okay.
And that didn't stop for a long time. My mum was obviously had problems herself. Do you know what I mean? And after coming out of a relationship with my dad and getting in a new relationship, it was a lot of drinking for my mum. And it's not till now that I realised, or come to understand, you know what I mean? My mum had a lot of problems herself growing up with parents and things like that. So she, drink was probably her coping mechanism, and I lived with that for a long time.
So like
a
cycle.
Yeah,
like a cycle.
Massively.
Yeah.
And I lived with that for a long time. Until growing up, 12, 13 years old, and we was putting Salvation Army housing and bed and breakfast, and I can remember when my mum got beat again, and I actually had to direct her to the police station. Do you know what I mean? Because she couldn't see because the amount of blood.
So was there much help for women with that situation, or was it a bit of a taboo to talk about this kind of stuff?
We didn't get any help that I know of. We got housed and pushed about and that, but we didn't get no help off of
like domestic violence.
No, not that I can remember.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was pretty rough. It was tough, man. It was real tough, and I was the younger brother out of the two, and by the time I got to 12 or 13, I got 2 younger sisters. Do you know what I mean? And it almost felt like my responsibility. Do you know what I mean?
Protect them, look after them.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So really and truly, you probably peaked as growing up as a young man quicker than you probably needed to be. So you might not have had the childhood that you wanted, right? Because you had responsibilities from day one, right?
Yeah, there weren't no after school clubs or scouts or beavers for me.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I grew up pretty quick. Do you know what I mean? At the age of 14, 15, you know, my mum was a real bad addict then. She was deep into addiction, and
So,
I had to cook, clean, and do you know what I mean? For myself, I had to learn that myself.
okay, okay.
Um,
So with the relationship with your mother and stuff like school and being expelled, where did life go from after that when you started getting into your sort of high school years?
wow, wild, hectic, lost. Do you know what I mean? If I look back now, I was probably a lost, scared little boy.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Um, but it got bad. You know, drugs,
When was the first time you
crime.
tried drugs?
Age of 13, 14. I was taking drugs.
What kind?
Um, I remember when I first got stoned actually when I was around, because I was living on an estate and it was a cul-de-sac and there was older people there, and I was 15 hanging around with 23-year-olds. Do you know what I mean? And I remember getting high, stoned one night off the fumes in someone's front room. Do you know what I mean? And I remember them saying, "Quick, Jan's coming down." Me mum, Jan, like, and I had to run upstairs and pretend I was asleep. Do you know what I mean? And that was the first time I'd ever, do you know what, took drugs. Well, not took them, but I'd been round them,
So,
and from then it was just, I started smoking.
yeah,
Um, and it, you know, it's hard. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's hard. But not many people know a lot of things. And you know, when I was hanging around with this older lot, I was smoking crack at 16, 17.
I mean, I've known you for years.
Yeah.
I never knew that. That's the first time I heard that. And
Mm. But I've noticed now growing up, you know, that's just because of what I was around. Do you know what I
the
mean?
influence.
Yeah, you know, I thought that was. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what I thought at that time really. I suppose I had a lot going on. Um, my mum was like in deep addiction. We wasn't.
How was she? What was the environment of, like you said, there was people turning up at the house and stuff. Was she inviting people over for gatherings,
Oh,
parties and stuff?
mate, my house was wild. You know, from a young age, I remember having to get people out of my house with a knife. And my sisters and that upstairs, you know, in tears and that. Like, and my mum shouting like "fuck off" and all that sort of stuff, and people in and out of our house, and you know, back then, I remember people used to nick JCBs and that, and like the diggers and that, and get 1,000 quid from them if you drove them up to Harry's Docks and that. I was 15, 16. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And nicking lorries, hot point lorries and that, with like electrical goods in coming down the cul-de-sac at
mm,
11 o'clock at night. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, yeah, our house was mad. Our house was mad. Like people kicking the door off, and you know, I used to, you know, at 15, 16, you know, I used to go and sleep in my mum's bed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I was scared. I was scared stiff. Do you know what I mean? But I thought I was looking after her. Do you know what I mean? And I had to. I don't know. It was hard. It was so hard. It was tough.
So through high school with all this going on, did you feel like you got much of an education?
High school.
Yeah.
God, wow. Um, I had no education at school. Do you know? They used to ring my mum up and say, "Listen, we won't put it on the records, but just keep your son at home this week." Do you know what I mean? I wasn't allowed to sit no exams because I was too disruptive. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't concentrate. I didn't know how to listen. Do you know what I mean? Because I was going off of self will, off of my will. Do you know what I mean? At that age, I didn't have no parents telling me right or wrong, or
Mm.
do you know what I mean? It was a very hectic lifestyle, and I was going off of my self will. Um, you know, things with my mum and dad got spiteful, divorced. Some like mum turns you against dad, dad turns you against mum. Do you know what I mean? I had all that confusion going on. Is mum bad? Is dad bad? You know, high school was absolutely wild for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was expelled in the end in high
What
school.
about like friends? What was your group of
I didn't
friends?
have none.
Didn't have no friends.
If I look back now, I can't say that I had friends. Do you know what I mean? If I'm honest, I probably didn't know how to have friends. Do you know what I mean? And I struggle with that today still.
I think like we discussed earlier, the first time we met was like motorbikes, scramblers, you
Wow,
know,
yeah, that's
dirt
14,
bikes.
age 14, 15. Yeah,
And
yeah.
we were talking about the times when we were driving bikes illegally,
Mm.
no bike licenses,
Yeah, yeah,
and
good
causing
times.
terrors, you know,
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
causing terrors around places. And I think that was
Mm.
what happened when you're young. When bad things are going on at home, you tend to not go home. You tend to
Mm.
stay out
Mm.
and be around other people like yourself.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
connect with people like yourself
yeah,
because you're all sort of going through something. So that becomes your family kind of
yeah,
thing, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. I get that. You know, as I've grown older and you know, I had people around me and I associated with people, but from the trauma of my upbringing, I still find it hard to this day to trust.
Trust,
Do you
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even at a young age and to this age now, I don't like letting people in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I don't want to be hurt. I'm scared of being hurt. Do you know what I mean?
Like
And
to be let down.
yeah, or abandoned. Do you know what I mean? In the end, my mum died, and you know, and my dad died. Like I'm scared of being hurt. Do you know what I mean?
So,
Like,
with you growing up, was there anyone that was sort of looking out for you and giving you a comfortable place to go to? Was there anyone? I remember you being close to your grandma.
yeah, my
Yeah,
nan and granddad. Wow. Yeah, my nan and granddad was always there. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard because there was many times. Do you know what I mean? And like my nan can remember when I used to be a little boy. I used to put my hand out the letterbox and say, Nan, can I come with you?" I meant that. Do you know what I mean? At that age, I probably meant that. Do you know what I mean? But my nan just thought, oh, he wants to come and stay with Nanny. And as we grew older, and the worse that my mum got, and the more that, you know, who I used to tell my nan about my mum, but my nan didn't want to believe that. Do you know what I mean? That's her little girl. She's not going to believe, like,
she was in
she
denial.
didn't want to believe it. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And that's hard to accept. Do you know what I mean? But my nan would always be there. Do you know what I mean? My nan took us on holidays. I've got some of the greatest memories with my nan and granddad. Um, and I think the way that my nan and granddad have been with me growing up is a lot to do with who I am, really. Do you know what I mean?
they seemed that they had a lot of patience.
Good people,
Yeah,
real good people.
yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, yeah, real good people. And I lost my granddad just over a year ago, and he was more of a dad to me than my own dad. But you know, I'm saying that my dad would have been a real dad if I would have let him, if I wasn't poisoned by my mum. And do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you know, my nan has been more of a mum to me than my own mum,
yeah,
but that's not her fault. She was
yeah.
ill. Do you know what I mean? And
So did they always
yeah, it's hard.
all family grew up in this area? Like, what's the history of the family?
Families are tough, right, for anyone.
Yeah,
You know, there's always family arguments, isn't
yeah,
there? And you know, he's done that, and she said that, and he's the bad guy, and you know, family's tough. Um, and I don't speak to none of my family today,
yeah,
um, and that's hard. But that's just life, isn't it? That's
yeah.
life and life's terms. You know, my mum fell out with my uncle, and it's just all very toxic behaviours, and it's not.
Yeah, sometimes families are there, but it doesn't mean they're meant to like each other. You know what I
No,
mean? It happens. I mean, you can choose your friends, you can't choose your
yeah,
family, so it's a difficult one. So I
it
know a lot of
is.
people that don't have the relationships
Mm,
that they have with their family like they have with their friends. They've kind
mm,
of made their own family as time's gone on, or had got their own
yeah,
misses and
yeah,
kids,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
tried to make a difference with their family.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
massively.
but getting back to family history, um, everyone in your family was in Clacton for a lot of years,
Yeah,
or
yeah. Wow, my granddad grew up in Clacton. Like, if you sat with my granddad, he would tell you everything. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? My
yeah,
granddad was just a gentleman, and he got on with everyone. He can remember the floods in Jaywick. I don't even know
yeah,
how many years ago, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, all my family grew up in London. I was Clacton, sorry. I was born in Clacton.
Yeah.
All my family was born in Clacton. My nan come from Suffolk originally.
What were they doing for work here when they were together? Like when they weren't retired, what were they doing?
Oh, but wow, oh, wow! My granddad used to be a car transporter
Okay.
for Tolman's. Wow, years ago,
Yeah.
and I used to go out with him in the lorry sometimes. Then obviously when he come to retirement, it's hard just to stop working it for
Yeah.
anybody. So then he went on to like little delivery jobs and things like that. Then obviously he got to an age where he couldn't do that, and then he would go and cut someone's grass or something. Do you know what I mean? So my granddad was a good person, and my nan, I can remember my nan used to do sewing from home.
Okay. Yeah.
Years and years ago. But before that, I think she worked in a factory, maybe a staple factory or something. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Then she went on to cleaning in a nursing home.
And for most people that didn't grow up in a seaside town, we spoke earlier about how different the summer months are, how different the seaside town looks compared to the winter.
Oh, wow.
Because you've got the tourism coming here
Yeah.
from places like London and some foreign countries and stuff. And Clacton can be a very nice place in the summer.
Yeah.
It can be very nice. You've got the beach,
Yeah.
couple of kilometers from here, not too far. But the winter, what people don't see, when all the holiday makers have gone and the jobs have dried up, because there's a lot of tourist jobs, a lot of people work on the pier and the promenades and stuff and sell things. The clubs are busier, right? The caravan sites are busy. So the tourism's there. But when the winter comes, you kind of see, it's like someone turning on the lights and you see all the cracks and the crevices and the dark side of things, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I moved here from London and my parents moved us here for a better life, my parents really thought they were coming to a much, much nicer place because they always came here from London in the summer. So when the winter come, me and Joe, my brother, we moved here, and we moved here in something like a November. And we said, what the fuck have you moved us to? It only being an hour and 20 minutes from London, it felt like a different world. Music was even different. We had different music the culture was different. So we had to kind of adapt to that. And I remember like going to school here. I was in a big high school in London. So coming to a smaller school in a smaller seaside town, it's like everybody knew each other. It was like, I think that the reason why there's been so many, which we're going to get into, so many crime stories and other stuff that's gone on here is because it's such a small place that there's that opportunity to get in with the wrong people. And I see Clacton as a sort of end of the line. You can't go any further than the sea.
Dead end.
It's a dead end, isn't it? So from the years into high school, if you can remember, what would you say the first time you had trouble with the law would be?
Oh my God. Oh wow. So leaving school and that, wow, I started going out in the town and in trouble. When did I start? I was in jail at 17. I'd been nicked before that. It's all violence really for me.
Drinking, would you say?
Yeah, drinking, all drinking. I remember I'd done my first week's wages at 15. I was on 30 quid a day and I had 150 quid. And I went out on a Friday night and I ended up in hospital because I drank too much. Then I think the week after I ended up in a police cell for violence, fighting. And that was just it. That was from then. It was violence for a long time.
So that's like a pattern, right?
Yeah,
I
was lost in violence. Bad home. Do you know what I mean?
I think the cycle of what you were seeing become normalized.
Yes. Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
And you're going out and doing.
I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different.
Normalized.
I was lost.
Yeah.
I was lost. Do you know what I mean?
For people who don't know, how would you describe? You've been to clubs. You've been to Ibiza, you've been to places.
Yeah.
What would you say for most people that have never witnessed what Clacton used to be like? Because it's not, the night scene's not there anymore.
Yeah.
But for example, like if we can name a couple of clubs, places that we can start at the Rockingham, for example.
Oh, wow.
This is an interesting place. So
Rockingham, wow. If you weren't from around here, or you was new walking in the Rockingham, the chances are you'd probably walk out and get a fucking good hiding. And that's the truth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a rough old pub. That was a rough old pub.
It was I think back in the day it was a pub where a lot of rock music was there.
There was.
It was famous for a lot of bands.
Yeah,
playing
bands.
There, right?
Yeah. But me being me, I wasn't even acknowledging the music. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't there for the music. But when now you come to say it, it would be a band on or something, or and it wasn't even my type of music.
That's it. You just went there because you was underage.
Yeah.
You could get in. You knew the doorman. They would let you in, and you
Yeah.
could get a pint age 14, 15.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember school
Yeah.
teachers being in there. I
Yeah.
remember some of the school teachers being in there. So
Yeah.
what are you doing in here? What are you doing in here?
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know?
Yeah, it was crazy. Absolutely crazy. But they're good times, do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I know it sounds like madness, and it was madness, but they were good times. Like,
Yeah.
they
Well,
were.
I think they were probably early ages of we discovered adulthood at a very young age, right? So
Had to grow up
we
quick.
probably didn't know the consequences at the time of a result in what we were getting ourselves into.
Oh, no way.
So with clubs and stuff, so drinking, violence, and that was mainly in the town centre, right? That was
Yeah, it was. Yeah, back then, town.
But what was
town was a
what would you
handful.
say the violence was over? What was the spark of the problems normally?
Probably people's egos or drink, drugs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People with troubled upbringings like myself. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, just a bit of mixture of everything, I think. Yeah, it weren't a very nice place to be sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I see a lot of things.
Yeah, we also had a couple of nightclubs where you could go out on a Monday night, Wednesday night, and you could buy one club, Rumours, that used to be open. It was £1 a drink.
Yeah.
In the middle of the week.
Yeah, double bubble.
Yeah.
I remember when you could go out for starting on a Wednesday. Rumours on a Wednesday, double bubble or £1 a drink, something like that.
Thursdays was Fibbers, double
Thursday
bubble.
was Fibbers, double bubble. Then Friday and Saturday was just a weekend. Do you know what I mean? So everybody was out. Do you know what I mean? So I used to start on a Wednesday and normally finish up on a Monday somewhere in someone's house. Do you know what I mean? Then a couple of days sleep and go back at it again.
And then you'd have to get back in the work or back in the hustle, whatever you're doing, to make ends meet, to make the weekend happen again, right? And that's what it was. It was a complete cycle all the time.
Yeah.
So once when did high school end for you? Did you finish high school? Or?
No, for high school, I got kicked out of high school in the end. Yeah, I got kicked out of high school in the end.
Where did your life start going then? Did you get a job?
Do you know what? Yeah, there were times I did work. Do you know what I mean? I'd be on this constant roundabout. Do you know what I mean? I would go to work, then things would be all right. Then I'd go out for 3 days and I'd lose that job. The amount of jobs that I had was unbelievable.
What kind of jobs were you doing?
Like labouring jobs, hod carrying jobs, angular concrete, making slabs. You know, I'd always find a job. Do you know what I mean? I was a grafter. I was a worker. Do you know what I mean? I really was, and I am today. I work hard, but just got to the point where I just got a name. Do you know what I mean? Don't give him a job. He's hard work. He'll be in Tuesday. He'll let you down Thursday, and do you know what I mean? For me, it got to a point where I got a name pretty quick that people just didn't want to employ me or want to be around me.
What would be the problem? Lack of reliability, or
everything really? Liability, letting them down, drink, drugs, violence. Like I soon separated myself from maybe the working class, if you like, to me. Do you know what I mean? I grew up in rough areas, estates and council estates, and do you know what I mean? I sort of had that option maybe to go away and do a job and do well, but I don't know why I never did really.
Maybe again, you're used to the pattern, and the clean, easy life and hard working, and that weren't the pattern that you were used to. So maybe being back in the pattern, I think we spoke about this earlier, is easier sometimes because you know how it's going to end up.
Yeah, it's the fear of the unknown, I suppose.
Exactly. So when life is too good, it can be confusing.
It's scary.
Yeah,
it's all, and you know, living at home and going to work on a Thursday, and I've got my mum downstairs with 5 other people drinking. Do you know what I mean? It's not. I don't want to use the word normal because there ain't no such thing as normal, but that's not right behaviours for someone that do you know what I mean? For growing up. So,
no matter how hard you tried to work towards something good, there was always that cycle of bad people.
Yeah.
And pulling you back in. Pulling you back in.
Yeah. And I have to take some responsibility for that myself. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously bad attitude, bad behaviours myself, but I didn't know any different really at the time. Do you know what I mean?
In my personal opinion, if you're under the age of 16, 17, I think that you're still not an adult and you're still
No.
growing
Yeah,
mentally,
yeah.
and so you can't be too much to blame for
Yeah.
consequences at them ages because you're
Mm,
still not an adult, in my opinion. Like if you look
yeah.
kids now, most kids are leaving high school at 18. We
Yeah.
were leaving high school at 16.
Yeah.
It's a big
give myself.
difference.
I do give myself a hard time in all areas of
You
life.
buy a
To be
pack of
honest.
cigarettes at 16.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
Yeah, I
could
remember that. You used to go down the shop with £1.80 for 10 sovereign or 1.60.
most. I remember
Yeah.
being at school. Most kids were smoking.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember going to Spain and bringing back cheap cigarettes for people in school and
Yeah, yeah,
selling, or
yeah.
pound of 50 pence a cigarette.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember all of that, and being able to drink underage was a normal
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Yeah,
It was a normal thing because people would have them pubs. They wanted the money. They wanted the
Yeah.
money coming in.
I remember we used to go to we used to call it the Stab and Pumpkin.
The Crab and
Yeah,
Pumpkin was
yeah.
the name of it, but it got a name, Stab and Pumpkin, because there was always stabbings in there.
Yeah,
It
it was a
was
rough old pub.
notorious for knife crime at the
A
time.
pound a pint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you go there for tenner on a Wednesday night for a pound a pint. You know, at that age, you don't need many pints. Do you know what I mean?
And yeah, you know, what is that doing with your even with your brain still growing, your
Oh,
body's
mate.
still growing. You know what I mean? Your hormones and
Mm,
testosterone levels, all of this
mm,
stuff. What you're putting yourself through at a
mm,
young age, it's affecting things later on in life.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm paying massively for my past. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think as well that maybe that's why we was talking earlier about your memory about certain subjects, ages, times, and
Yeah,
dates? It gets affected, right?
it does. I don't remember time. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember. Like, it's not. It's not so long ago that I used to have to ask my missus like, how old am I this year? Do you know what I mean? I got lost in time so much, and yeah, and it's my mum's birthday on Wednesday. And she's been gone 17 years, bless her. And it's the last couple of days I've really looked, and I thought 17 years. Do you know? I've lost my mum for 17 years from the age of 21. Then I don't know what's happened in them 17 years. You know, I've got a little boy now of 3 years old. I've got a good missus. I hold down a job, and this is hitting me a little bit. This one because it's sort of come to realization. What have I done for 17 years? Do you know what I mean? I have been so lost.
Yeah.
You know?
Finding your way.
Yeah.
Finding your way in
Yeah.
the wrong ways and sometimes the right ways.
Yeah. And we spoke about that pattern. Do you know what I mean? That round, like, so I can do well. Then I can give myself a hard time. Then I self-destruct and ruin everything because it's almost like I'm not worthy of good because I've come from shit. Do you know what I mean?
You're like your worst own enemy.
Yeah. And I get told that all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I give myself such a hard. I am my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And that's because of my thoughts, my feelings, and trauma. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think that when we look at how people perceive us, we often look at a negative way, whereas people don't technically look at us how we expect people to look at us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're
trying to be
massively.
perfectionists of ourselves.
Yeah, massively.
But nobody else is noticing that.
Yeah. I can give myself a hard time, and people go, "You mad? Look where you are now. Look what you've gone through.
Yeah.
Like, look where you are now."
Yeah.
But then I'll still tell myself, "Well, I haven't got this yet, or I haven't done that yet, or I don't want to be where I am." I'm lucky to be alive. Do you know what I mean? I'm lucky to be alive today. Through violence, drink, drugs. Do you know? I'm lucky to be alive. Like, to come through that, I'm lucky to be alive.
Absolutely. What do you think? Like when you was in that point when you was going out drinking in that cycle, where did life go then? Did it get progressively worse?
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So what was the next stage of your life, do you think, that was a turning point at that point, like where things started to get a lot worse? What age did you think that it started to get a bit, you know, bit hairy, would I say?
21 when my mum died.
So that was, and how old was she when she passed?
I was 21.
And how old was she?
She was 46.
Okay, and you're almost 40 now, right?
38.
38, so you come out, you know. And I think that plays a part as well. When you see someone that's lost their life at that age, and you start to get close to the age that they are at, it's a big realization.
That's what's hit me the last couple of days. I don't think I've probably ever grieved for my mum.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm dealing with probably today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
I was gone. I was absolutely wild. I was lost.
Yeah.
I was I don't know who I was. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was someone that I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And that was coping, I suppose. And anger was my biggest thing. Do you know what I mean? Anger, if I don't like you, I can be angry, you can go away.
Mm.
If I want you to like me, I can be angry, so you're scared of me. Do you know what I mean? Anger is such a powerful emotion, isn't it? It's dangerous. Do you know what I mean? And I wasn't a nice person. And I've done a lot of things that I regret and I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just come to a point.
Was there any examples at that age where there might have been situations with the law that you feel that it was getting a little bit out of hand? Was there any points at that point at 20? You said at 17 you spent some time in some police cells and whatever. Was there any times that the criminal record started to change and get progressively worse? Was there times that you spent times in prison?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I'm not proud of none of this. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
And I'll be honest. Yeah, knife crime. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Knife crime was rife.
Yeah. So was there gangs then?
I wouldn't say. From where I'm from, the word I don't know, gangs. I don't. But there was a good group of us that. Do you know what I mean? And I have to be careful when I say this stuff because I can almost get off on it. It excites me sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And that's the truth. Do you know what I mean? The thrill of it. Do you know what I mean?
The adrenaline.
The not caring. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there was a few of us. Do you know what I mean? And knife crime was, and I can remember going into the army and navy shop, the trading post, and buying a new knife because it was the weekend.
What was the reason for the violence? Was there other groups of people you didn't like? Was there?
No, there wasn't anything particular of anyone that just that horrible. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
What was the drug of choice then? Like, how would the weekend pan out? How would the weekend start?
Oh wow, to be able to go out, you need money for a start.
Yeah.
So, sell drugs. Do you know what I mean? Sell drugs to go out and drink, to take drugs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's how it would start. And I can remember being at my mum's and with a couple of other people and and if they hear this, they'll know who I'm on about.
Yeah.
And we had some good times, I can't lie. And we used to go to my house and in my upstairs in my room, my mum would be pissed. So do you know what I mean? We just, wrap a load of tickets up with gear and get the old washing bags that you used to put the washing tablets in.
Personal bags.
Yeah, that's it. And we used to fill them up, tie them round the laces, balls that off, and go out with a knife. And one of my friends, very good friends, do you know what I mean? You come unstuck, and people lost lives as well. And I'm lucky. Do you know what I mean? I didn't. Do you know what I mean? It was heavy. It was real heavy stuff. Like, yeah, I was a violent, horrible, angry person at that time of my life.
Yeah. So what happened was that selling drugs was your income.
Yeah.
So if we can cover this, how did it work with selling drugs back in the day in some town like this? Who's the punters? Like, would you go to bars and clubs?
Oh yeah, we'd just be out all the time.
Yeah,
we'd be out.
People would know who you were.
Oh yeah. Like at the time, there weren't many really people about doing that. I don't suppose at my age. Yeah, if I look back, there weren't many people that you could go and buy a bag of gear off. Really, there was just a handful of us, really.
And it's kind of in British culture. British party drug is normally coke mixed with alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very violent cocktail.
Yeah,
you mix them things together.
Yeah.
It becomes out of hand.
Oh wow, yeah. I remember I was in the Rock and Roll one night, and one of my friends coming in, and he was covered in blood, and the first thing I do, I didn't even think. Do you know what I mean? I run straight out the door and run after these people, and they got in a taxi and locked the doors on the taxi rank. There's me and my pals. There's some of them jumping on the bonnet of the taxi. some of them are trying to smash the window, and
So the innocent taxi drivers.
yeah,
in
innocent
on it,
taxi
yeah.
driver. Yeah, innocent. Hadn't, he was just out working for the night, and the taxi window was undone about that much. It wasn't undone a lot. So I ran round. I got a knife out, and I went through the window with the knife. Do you know what I mean? To try and stab the people in the back, and I caught the taxi driver in the neck, and I went to jail for that. They done the window up, and they locked my arm in the window with the taxi. So my arm's through the window, and they're driving. They drove to the police station.
What?
Yeah, they drove to the police station.
Oh, wow.
And I remember having to put my other hand over the top of my head,
Yeah.
like so I'm through the driver's window, and I'm having to hold myself up to stop my feet from dragging. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they rang the police, and when I got to the police station, there was police all there, and they undone the window, and that was it.
And I'm guessing back then, with what you fellas were getting involved with, local police must have known you by name.
Yeah. There was many times when I was that young when I was getting arrested. I was having to have adult supervision. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd have a responsible adult with me instead of my mum or someone.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? I was a handful. I was not a nice person. I was very violent.
Yeah.
Stabbings.
So how long did you go to prison for?
I can say it now. I was quite lucky, really. It was only at magistrates because they couldn't find a knife, and I thought I was going to get away with it. And the case went on for a while, and in the end, they found a knife underneath the car seat or something like that. And I went to magistrates, and they said if you pleaded guilty today, then you'd be sentenced today. And at the time, at magistrates, you could only get 12 months. So I got 12 months for it. I think it was an affray because they couldn't actually prove.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a long time ago. Like I say, I have problems with times, dates.
So again, and some bit of luck came, and you didn't probably spend more than 6 months.
Yeah, I think I'd done 5 months and got on tag, and I think I was 17 there. I spent my 18th birthday in jail.
Which prison was you at?
Chelmsford.
So not far
No,
from...
Hollisley Bay.
Okay.
Hollisley Bay.
Okay.
But it's mad because, I'm going to be honest here. Do you know what I mean? At the time, I was on bail for that, and I was with a girl, and I was going through a lot of stuff, and I'm not justifying any of my behaviour. But a long story short, I ended up strangling her and putting her head underwater, and I got arrested for attempted murder then, and I got remanded. Then I got remanded. Then I got sentenced for the knife in the taxi. And I was at Hollisley Bay, and I got shipped to Chelmsford prison on my 18th birthday. They knocked on my door and said, "Come on, Keynesy, you're going to Chelmsford prison," and that was it.
So to justify the situation, what happened with the girlfriend at the time?
Oh,
where was your head at? Do you remember doing this? Do you remember not doing this? Was this to do with
that was a Sunday night, and I'd been out since Thursday.
Okay, sleep deprivation, drugs.
Yeah. I was 17. Yeah.
So coming back out of prison, then did anything change for you?
No. My mum had got worse. I'd got worse.
Yeah.
And I went straight back out. Straight back out. Then, and I think I was in jail. I was in jail on my 21st as well. My 18th and my 21st I spent in jail. You don't forget them birthdays.
Was there many people that you knew in there from the area? Any people from...
I remember being in Chelmsford and calling it B-Wing on Sea.
Yeah.
I was on B-Wing in Chelmsford, and there were so many people in Clacton, it was called B-Wing on Sea.
Okay.
Because there was that many people. I think there was about 7, 8 of us at the time in Chelmsford. Yeah. It was quite heavy.
So the system didn't really teach you much going in for them periods of time, or not?
I got bricklaying out of Hollisley Bay, and I'm a bricklayer today.
Okay, so something good out of it.
Yeah. Well, I picked up a trade.
Which is interesting with the English prison system, is that you can study in there.
You can.
You can reform and get something from it, right?
But when you've got a wing full of 100 criminals, and you've got these handful of people that it's hard to do right.
It's an
Isn't it?
easier option to
Yeah,
get
of
work from
course it
them
is.
and have opportunities, right?
Yeah, you go.
When you put that many criminals together,
You come out more criminally into. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's a good saying: you're only as good as what you're around, and if you're in jail for 9 months, you're only going to be as good as the people you're around, aren't you?
And I
It's
suppose
hard.
being younger around older people again,
Yeah,
you're impressed by their behaviour.
yeah.
They're
It's a
probably
buzz, isn't
looking
it?
up to some of them as father figures,
Mm,
something you didn't have, right?
mm.
And so coming back out again, now you're in your 20s. You had bricklaying under your belt.
Yeah,
Did you get into bricklaying or?
yeah. I mean, there was times I done well at work. Do you know what I mean? And I did do well at work. I done well. But then again, I'd do well and I'd just crumble again. I'd self-destruct because I don't know what it is to this day.
What was it like with your bricklaying? Did you have a lot of self-belief? Did you think you was good? Or?
Yeah, there was probably a lot of worthlessness in it. Am I good enough?
So up and down, like
constantly, all the time.
Roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, all the time. Not knowing how to deal with feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
I've never been loved. Do you know what I mean? How can love yourself? Do you know what I mean? You know. It's horrible.
If you can't love yourself, no one else can love you. Right?
And I grew up in a broken home and a destructive lifestyle of drugs and crime, and you know.
Did you ever?
I'm lucky to come
Did
out.
you ever get an opportunity to go abroad at that time to travel and do all this?
Oh no! I mean, I'd love to have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only time that I travelled was to Ibiza.
So
and that was with drugs up my ass.
What years were they?
Oh wow! Jesus Christ, man. 25, so I reckon 26s, 27s. Maybe.
So that would have been 2000.
Mate, I'm terrible with dates.
Probably around 2010.
Yeah.
2008. These eras.
Mm.
Ibiza at the time. Oh, Ibiza's always been a place for music, but at that time when I was younger, I could see that things were starting to get big there again. It was like a lot. Well, maybe it was just because of our age group that I was seeing more people go there, but it felt like that was a big time for music again.
Yeah, it was mad over there.
Yeah,
it was mad, and it's mad.
So you was trying to take drugs, or you was
I took drugs over there.
Yeah,
and you know what? I was so obsessed, and I had MDMA powder, and it all come in lumps and rocks, and I went with one of my pals. He's an absolutely lunatic, and I didn't want to crush it up. Do you know what I mean? That's how fucked I was like, no, don't ruin it. Do you know what I mean? And I plugged that and took that to Ibiza, thinking I was going to do the season in Ibiza and become a drug dealer, and that would be all right. Do you know what I mean? There was not a chance in hell. I was partying and taking the drugs. Do you know what I mean?
High on your own supply.
Yeah, absolutely madness.
Okay. We'll stop there.
Yeah.
We're going to change the memory card.
Yeah,
and then we'll talk about Ibiza because this will be.
Yeah,
let's make another drink. Let me give you another drink. So what happened when you got to Ibiza?
Are we going? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Oh, I went. That was the raving days. That's when a lot changed. I had a bad accident. I'd snapped my leg. I won't go too much into that, but I was ill for a long time at my nan's, and I remember just getting over that. And my bedroom used to be downstairs at the front at the time, and one of my good friends, and he's still my good friend now, and we just took different paths, and I'd always be there if he needed me, and I remember him knocking on my bedroom window, and he had a handful of pills, and he was like, "Come on, you need to get out, Kainsey." He said, "Come on, we're going," and I was like, "Where the fuck are we going?" And I've got a metal leg. Do you know what I mean? I've got a titanium rod. I'd come out of hospital, and at the time I'm an addict. I'm a drug addict. Do you know what I mean? And still to this day I am. But I just know what to do now, not to obsess or run away from thoughts or feelings or whatever. And I was eating tramadol at my nan's and smoking weed and in and out, I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I said his name, and he'll know who it is, and a lot of people will. And he banged on my window, and there was a car parked down the road. I was still on crutches. Do you know what I mean? And he said, "Come on, we're going to London. We're going to Egg raving." What? Fucking up. Got up, got dressed, and I went out, and I walked down the road, and I took some pills, and I was off, mate. And the consequences of that, I snapped the pins in my knee, and
Because you went out.
yeah, because I was walking on it too soon. The crutches went after 3 or 4 hours. Do you know what I mean? And I was jumping about
I
on
can
my
walk
feet.
again. I'm
Yeah,
healed.
it was only
Yeah.
5-6 weeks before that I had my leg wrapped around my neck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my femur snapped in half. And 5-6 weeks later, I'm popping pills like sweets and dancing my head off. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, that's when all the raving started and the different drugs. And I was gone. I was gone raving. That was it.
So
Then.
when did the first trip to Ibiza happen?
Oh wow! So we'd been raving in a Freak Lash, and we met some people from out of town like Chelmsford and Braintree and Whittam, the other
So
boys.
Freak Lash was like a weekend events. And
Yeah,
stuff?
it was like
or bank holidays.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
so many DJs.
Yeah, that's
like
it.
a festival. Yeah.
Yeah, like a little Colchester mini festival. You'd go there during the day, then you'd go to the afters, and we'd done that for some time. And yeah, we met. They're good lads. Do you know what I mean? I still speak to some of them today. And yeah, they went over to Ibiza, then yeah, like me and my pal followed. Do you know what I mean? And we went over there for a holiday, and before you know it, it's appealing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Taking drugs and partying.
Yeah, I remember you going there and basically going there for a season.
Yeah.
The season would start what sort of time?
Oh, yes, so opening parties. God, wow. I'm pushing it old now. So, like I said before, times and dates and that I struggle with massively. But the opening parties have got to be the sort of April, May time, ain't they? Do you know what I mean? And yeah, we was gone.
And you were there to the very end, right?
We was gone.
Where was you staying while you were there? What was
So me and my pal, we flew over there and we stayed in a hostel at the beginning in San Antonio. And it was literally a room. It was a shithole.
Yeah.
And my other pals were staying on the other side of the town. We stayed there a couple of nights and, they said to us, we're in the apartments over here. Our next door neighbour's staying on his own. Come and stay with him. So we was like, yeah, no worries. Like we packed up and left this hostel thing and went there and and we undone the door and this geezer's there with like just his shorts on and a couple of birds and one eye. And I was like, rah, who's this fella? Do you know what I mean? Like he definitely ain't there on holiday.
Yeah.
It was pretty heavy. It was pretty deep, and as I went over there to sell drugs, take drugs, and stay there and live life. Do you know what I mean? And
so, what was your day to day there?
Oh wow! Oh, it was just madness. It was hectic. Do you know what I mean? It was out. And
was you
trying
out?
to find stag do's and people and to sell drugs to?
Yeah.
And
was you sleeping a lot or not really?
Oh, not really. There were people over there that we come across. They'd been up for a week. Do you know what I mean? And in the end, they were just taking speed to stay awake.
Yeah.
It wasn't long after that. We was there for a little while, and the drugs overtook. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to sell drugs no more, nor did my pal. And I can remember being in Jets on Sunday, and I said, "You keep the drugs in your pocket." I said, "I'll speak to the people," because you had people from everywhere. Do you know what I mean? France, Spain. You had to be careful who you were selling to as well. Do you know what I mean over there? And I didn't give a fucking monkeys. I talked to anyone. And I remember going over to him and I was like, fucking hell, look at the state of him. Do you know what I mean? And I said, where's the stuff? I got someone over there. And he just looked at me and went, I don't know, mate. I said, what do you mean you don't know? He's got no flip-flops. He'd thrown them in the sea. He's got no phone and he's standing there and everything's fell out of his boxers and he's standing all over him on the floor. Do you know what I mean? The drugs just overtook and it wasn't about selling drugs then. And it wasn't long after that the apartment that we were staying in, I think it was in the paper at the time, like drug dealer's paradise in the front of the Sun paper. There was a couple of girls that had been caught bringing some coke back or something like that, and they were staying in the apartments that we were, and the bloke that we were sharing with, he soon packed up his suitcase and flew, and you just see all these people running up these hills from these apartments, burying drugs, and that was time to go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was scary. Do you know what I mean? That was time to go. Like, what's going on here? you got paparazzi running through the swimming pools, snapping photos of everyone. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, that was mad times, real mad times. That was.
So when reality hit and you had to come back to reality here, how was that?
Well, the party just carried on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, guess what happened over there? Like, it was a buzz. It was, you know, I don't get ashamed or embarrassed of saying it, but that's a different me to now. Do you know what I mean? And I look back and share this sort of stuff, and I think, rah, man, you know, I was lost. But at the time, I can't take it away. It was good fun. Do you know what I mean? It was the excitement, the buzz, the thrill. And when we come back, the party carried on. Do you know what I mean? It was the rave scene with a good group of us, a real good group of us, and we had some good times. Do you know what I mean? And we used to hire a hire car, and you know, we used to drive to London for the weekend, and we used to drive back on Monday mornings and that, and like going up there on a Friday night, and we used to drive back, and we've got like snapbacks on and vests on at like 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning coming down the A12, and we would all be out of our nuts smoking weed, and we'd all be looking at these people going to work on a Monday morning, and we'd go, "What the fuck are they looking at?" Do you know what I mean? That's how mad it was. Like, that's how
completely out of the system.
Yeah, we was like, "What are they looking at?" As if like to say, "What what are we doing wrong?"
Yeah.
But we're in a hire car,
Yeah.
all windows undone, eyes in the back of the head, chewing your shoulder,
Yeah.
trying to drive. Do you know what I mean? And it's mad. Like we were, I remember my pal driving up there one Sunday night. It was a Sunday, and we was like, "Come on, let's just go, aquarium. Let's just go." And my pal drove up there, and we was overtaking ambulance. Do you know what I mean? On the A12, like, and we were sniffing ketamine up there on the way up there, and my pal was going, I think the wheels are falling off. And it's a mad story. You know what I mean? It's mad. And I was sitting in the front, and I said, wheels ain't falling off, mate. Like, I'm telling you now, we was going so fast, the steering wheel was shaking. Do you know what I mean? That's how fast we was going. But he thought the wheels were falling off. And we're now on the side of the A12 with this car, BMW, jacked up, checking all the wheels. Like, that's how insane and mad it was. It was crazy, crazy times, man, but some good times as well.
Yeah.
And that went on for some years, maybe 5 years, like up until I was probably about 3 or 4 years, I suppose. What am I, 48? I met Lauren at 25. Yeah, and everything went up to about 25, 26, I reckon, all this raving, pills, partying. There weren't no violence then.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't about violence then. It was about going out and having a good night.
I think that what was going on then in that era was just a rebirth of what happened in the 90s, but a softer, like when I talked to my uncle about the illegal rave scene going on in the 90s across UK, that was all ecstasy. It was love, no fighting. All of the violence had stopped for a long, long time. All of the football thuggery and all that stopped when the racing came in, and then the racing died out. Then other genres came in, and then back in the early 2000s, it sort of came back again. That need for dance music and stuff.
Oh, it was good. You could meet people from anywhere, and you'd be out your head, and I've never met these blokes, and you'd be like, "Oh, mate," and you'd fucking high five and dance, and I've met some characters, and it was some good times. It was some good times. I can't take that away.
So when did this have to stop? When did all of this start to become a problem again?
I'd become very, very dark and deep in addiction. With back onto coke, suicidal, rehab. Do you know what I mean? I met my girlfriend that I'm still with today, and bless her heart. Do you know what I mean? To live with someone, I find it hard to live with myself. Do you know what I mean? So for someone to live with me and put up with my journey and what I went through, is an incredible woman, really. Do you know what I mean? But I haven't been no saint, and I ain't easy to live with.
How did you meet?
Out one night.
Yeah.
Yeah, one night I was out. I think it was my birthday. I think it was about my 25th birthday or 26th birthday, and she was outside Tom Pepper's, and she was working in Tom Pepper's, and I'd been barred from Tom Pepper's for like nearly 15 years.
Tom Pepper's was like a pub on the seafront.
Yeah.
It had a nightclub above it.
Yeah.
And this was a place that it was always rife. It was
Oh
always
wow.
rife of trouble.
Yeah. I was barred from there for 15 years, and I was allowed to go back in there, and there was this bird behind the bar, and yeah, it just went from there really. And I've been with her since. And I suppose when I come away from people, I still had this wanting to take drugs or escape from life, thoughts, feelings, trauma, upbringing, past life, and coke become very, very dark. And I kept that from her for a long time. Do you know what I mean? And
what would you say the difference between your drug taking? What would be the worst drug habit that you had? Would you say cocaine was?
Yeah, coke brought me to my knees. Yeah.
And for most people that maybe have not experienced an addiction with cocaine, how would you say it affected you on a daily basis?
I remember living at my nan's, yeah, and I remember, you know, it got to a point where I'd get up and not even brush my teeth to go and pick some up. Do you know what I mean? That obsession to use was rife. I couldn't escape that obsession. And I remember doing well at work, but still sniffing. And I remember living on the caravan site with Lauren, and I was sniffing every night. And we got kicked off of that caravan site for whatever reasons. And I lived in a flat down Wellesley Road, a 1-bedroom flat. And yeah, I tried to take my life there. That's how much it got hold of me. I barricaded doors up. I'd been in there. Lauren would go to work, get on the train, bearing in mind why I'm doing what I'm doing. And she would come every day to check to see whether I was all right. Do you know what I mean?
How was your feeding habit at the time?
I'd done quite well at work for some period of time, and I had a little bit of money at the time.
Because you can function on certain drugs and work, right?
Yeah, you can. Weed I could, coke I couldn't.
No.
Like I'd finish work, I'd go and get a bit of gear, I'd sniff it down a load of Stella, take some sleeping tablets, go to sleep, and do it again. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, Wellesley Road in that flat was probably one of my darkest, lowest points of my life. And yeah, I took over 100 tablets. I sniffed a hell of a lot of gear. You know, I don't want to boast how much, or it's not about how much or what. But I was up for 3 or 4 days.
So sleep deprivation.
And Lauren come and checked on me and couldn't get in. And she got some blokes across the road to kick the door off. And I just remember waking up in hospital, and I walked to Open Road and I begged them for help. You know, I cried, I begged for help, please.
Open Road's like a
drug sort of rehabilitation help.
Yeah.
People with addiction.
Like a first help, yeah?
Yeah. And I begged them. I absolutely begged them. And then I moved back to Nan's when I come out of hospital. Do you know what I mean? I went back to my Nan's house, and you know, it wasn't long after that I started taking drugs again. Do you know what I mean?
Would you say that your Nan's place was a bit more of a safe place?
Oh, of course, yeah. Wow. Yeah, it was safe there. I didn't have no bills. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to worry about money.
There's this famous scene in Trainspotting when he's coming back off of his addictions and he goes back to his parents' house and they lock him in a room and they look after him and feed him.
Oh, it's no place like home. Right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? And that was their way of getting in, you know, he was getting off the drugs because he was back in the safe place, right? You know, he could cleanse himself again. And
yeah.
And I think that's probably what your grandma's place was like. You probably had a respect for her that you wouldn't do that stuff there.
I soon done it there.
Yeah, it got that bad that you started doing it there as well.
Yeah.
Was she knowing that you were doing it, or?
I think she probably, you know, me shutting myself in the bedroom door, creeping around the house, and creeping out at 4 o'clock in the morning before she'd wake up. I think she knew something was going on, but you know, I think that takes it back to when my mum was deep in addiction. You know, sweeping it under the carpet. You know,
denial.
Turn a blind eye, he'll be all right, sort of thing. But yeah, I was bad at my Nan's. I was real bad at my Nan's. I was paranoid, sniffing all the time. That was after I tried to take my life. Do you know what I mean? I soon jumped straight back into addiction. And it got to a point after a while, you know, I rung Open Road again and I said, like, oh, please help. Like, why am I getting that help? And they said, you know, we've been writing to you. I said, I haven't got no letters. And they gave me the address of the flat that I was living in, because I moved out of there, didn't update my details, and I didn't get no letters. I didn't know what was going on, and it got real bad again. Do you know what I mean? It got real bad again, and I rung them up and said, you know, I rung them up on a Friday morning actually, when my nan went shopping with my granddad. I remember it. My granddad used to take my nan shopping every Friday, and I'd woke up Friday enough, and it was coming to the weekend again, and I knew that I could do this and do that, get more of this, and I generally had enough. And I rang them up, and you know, they said, you know, you can go to rehab. And I said, what? I said, yeah, let's go.
So what happened there?
Oh wow, that was tough there. That was tough there. I had to be clean for, I think it was 30 days. I had to be clean for.
What was the place?
Sharps in Braintree.
Okay.
And
was it paid for by government?
Yeah, it was funded,
Yeah.
which I'm grateful for. Do you know what I mean? Because there was no way that I would be able to afford it, or my nan. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's funded. I'm lucky that it was funded. And I'd be picked up in the morning, taken to Braintree for the day, and I'd be dropped off home 6 days a week. And yeah, that was deep. That was real deep. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know, you know. I remember going to my nan's house, right, after a few weeks at rehab, yeah, and I undone the cupboard to make a drink. And I looked at orange juice and blackcurrant juice, and I remember this, and I'll never forget. This is how lost and confused I was. And I was just staring at these two bottles of juice. And my nan was like, what's the matter? I must have been staring there for a minute or two. And she said, what's the matter? I said, I genuinely don't know what I want. Like, I didn't know whether I liked orange juice or blackcurrant juice. I genuinely didn't. Do you know what I mean? I was torn apart there.
Couldn't even make decisions for yourself.
No, and I still struggle with decisions today. Do you know what I mean? Like, are they right? Are they wrong? Should I? Shan't I? Do you know what I mean? And I still struggle today. Yeah, and rehab was it. Do you know what I mean? I knew.
How long did you stay clean for after that first time?
The longest time I've stayed clean since the age of 13 is 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah, and that's the longest time I've stayed clean since the age of 13.
And what would you say was your trick to staying that clean for that long amount of time?
Fellowship, NA meetings.
So other people that suffer from similar stuff?
Yeah, they say attraction rather than promotion, do you know what I mean? So I'm not here promoting it. Yeah, NA program, a spiritual program.
Is there any ones that you would like mention on here that have helped you?
Oh yeah, Narcotics Anonymous. You know, you can go on the internet and search, I've got a drug problem or a drink problem, and they all come up. You know, you've got Cocaine Anonymous, Alcoholic Anonymous.
These ones are based in Clacton that you went to?
They're all over.
Okay.
You know, you can get meeting anywhere.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? You can go online meeting. You can log on one now. There's 24/7 meeting. Do you know what I mean? There's help there if you want it. Do you know what I mean? And that saved me. I believe that saved me.
Is there any situations when you went to these places and you recognise people from the past?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I see people there. They see me there. But who you see and what you hear there stays there. Do you know what I mean? It's a safe place to go. You know, who wants to go there?
So there's that sense of trust there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What you were looking for.
Yeah, I feel safe there.
Yeah.
I feel safe there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can be honest there. And I can say what's going on with thoughts and feelings and emotions, and people can relate to that and understand that. Do you know what I mean? Because they've been through that. Yeah. And if I go and have a conversation with someone that's never experienced that and explain that, they just don't get it. They don't. They don't.
So now you're at the stage in your life where you're getting close to 40. You've got a 3-year-old son now.
Yeah, I've got a little boy. Yeah. I've still got.
How has that changed your life?
Oh wow, man. My little boy is, I could cry. Do you know what I mean? He's absolutely amazing. I'm very lucky to have a girlfriend that I've got. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't wish for a better mum for him. I really couldn't. Do you know what I mean? And my life's pucking now. To be where I was, to hold down a job today, bills, a roof over my head, clean clothes, and food in the cupboard. What else do you want?
Yeah.
Or what else do I want from where I've come from?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's life. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I have a spiritual connection today. Do you know what I mean? I love going. I love the outdoors. I get something from the beach, the fields, the walking. Do you know what I mean? And my little boy loves that as well. It's mad. Do you know what I mean?
And a lot of people take that for granted because
Yeah.
a lot of people come to Clacton in the summer and they see living like my parents did, living in the seaside. Oh, it's beautiful. Go for a nice walk along the beach. Go for a swim.
Yeah.
If you've got a lot of nature, you can go to Dedham from here.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a really nice place. It's Colchester's was a nice city. I'm not sure now, but there's a lot of history around these places. So people take for granted what they have around.
Massively.
I think you just sometimes need to change your outlook.
Yeah,
your
perspective, 100%.
I remember when I first started speaking to you when you did that rehab. I remember you was getting up early in the morning, sunrise, and just going walks.
Yeah.
You were just walking.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember the clarity you was having.
Oh, mate, that's you can't buy that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You cannot buy that peace. Yeah. That's an inside job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's a real bit of graft to get that. Do you know what I mean? And I used to get off on that up at 5, walk down the beach, you know, in that peace and quiet, listening to I beat the day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I beat the day.
Yeah. When everyone else is sleeping, you're out and you have to yourself, right?
Yeah. And I can do it. I still do it today. I can get trapped and go, oh, shit, this is crap today. But what have you got up to do for yourself before you started the day?
That's it.
Do you know what I mean? If I'm waking up at 7 o'clock and going to work for someone at 7:30, what have I actually done for myself before the day started?
Wake up late, in a rush, stressed, get to work.
They're moaning about life.
Yeah. And then take your anger out on somebody else instead of deal with your problems firsthand, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that having a son now gives you responsibilities to...
Oh, yeah, massively.
To teach him what you basically had to learn the hard way, right?
Yeah. Listen, he ain't going to get everything added on the plate. Like, I want him to learn the hard way in a sense, but not in the hard way that I've learned through drugs, violence, domestic violence. Not that hard, but he needs to learn. Do you know what I mean? And he's a tough little boy, mate. He's a good kid, and I just, he'll be who he is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's that. And yeah, he's a pucker little boy. He really is.
So if we could sum up anything now I would say, because at the moment, if we look at the subject of mental health and men in UK, it's very, very high right now.
Yeah, it's
like, I can't remember the statistics. I think it's around 80% suicide rate for men, something like that in UK.
I see something the other day of how many people have actually committed suicide this
especially
year.
These months, like January, February. We're into March now. We're getting into spring, but that January, February time's a hard time for a lot of people. What would your message be with what lessons you can give to the next generation of youngsters that are getting to them ages now, are getting into gangs or knife crime? What would you say that you learned?
What I say I'd learn. I know what you've just got to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Express your feelings. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a weakness. So it's to sit and express of how you're feeling and thinking, and asking for some help. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a powerful thing to do.
Well, I think we were taught for a long time as men is to open up because it's a sign of weakness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think opening up is a way of dealing with traumas and dealing with grief instead of pushing it down and not dealing with it.
Just burying it. Yeah.
Because the big circle that you've done, that you kept doing over and over again, it weren't working, right?
No, and it still doesn't
until you dealt with it.
And I've got to be honest. You know what I mean? I'm back to 30 days with no drink or drugs again tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this addiction doesn't go away, and it's a full-time job on myself. Do you know what I mean? I have to wake up and do a gratitude list. I have to look at what I've got. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to be grateful for. Do you know what I mean? And I was never grateful. I didn't even know what grateful meant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think, life's hard for anybody. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter where you're from or what you've got or where you've been brought up or what upbringing you've had. Life is hard. Do you know what I mean? And it can change in a blink of eye for anybody. You know, You can have trauma, and money can't change that, and you can become ill and unwell and mental health. And I just think, just be honest, man. That's the hardest thing for me to do.
And I think that's what I appreciate you coming here today and telling your story, no matter how hard it is, because people out there need to learn lessons from other people.
Yeah.
You can't learn about drug addiction unless you talk to an addict,
No.
who's been through the mill and learned what it's like to be that way and get something from it. And that's what's important about this podcast is sharing this information with people. It's not that we're gloating or trying to send a different message out. We're just trying to show people that crime doesn't pay in the end.
No.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a long process.
Yeah. If crime pay, I'd be out there doing it now still.
You'd be a
Do you know what I
millionaire.
mean? Yeah, and I'd have some money behind me. Do you know what I mean?
Whereas sometimes the honest days graft is the best. Honesty is the best policy. Like you said, right? An honest day's pay is better than anything. Coming home and knowing
and not having to worry that I'm going to get nicked for what I've done.
Exactly. You come home tired.
Yeah.
Got a cooked meal on the table.
I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, life's good today. Just for today, do you know what I mean? Just for today, like today's good. Do you know what I mean? I woke up with my head clear, not overthinking, not obsessing over doing something or getting more money or having the need to chase something to make myself feel better. I woke up grateful in the clean bed, my head quiet. I could hear the birds outside. I could hear my little boy downstairs happy with my missus, his mum. I went downstairs, I had coffee, I got hot water. Do you know what I mean? And that's a lot to have in this day and age.
Absolutely.
It's hard.
I think even this podcast wasn't planned. This is our first.
Yeah.
You're our first guest. And it wasn't planned, and for you to come at last minute notice and do this, I'm more than grateful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I hope it's I hope I can help someone, and that's me. That's me today. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I've known you for a long time, and I'm grateful that you've asked me. And you're a good guy. You've done a different path, didn't you? You've done your barbering and travelled the world, and fair play to you.
Thanks a lot, Ricky. Cheers,
thanks for asking me on. Cheers.
Done. Thanks a lot, mate.
Yeah?
That was good.
Yeah?
That was brilliant, mate.
Sure?
Honestly, brilliant.
Oh.
That was really good.